After 6 years apart, billionaire woman discovers incredible love as she encounters ex and twin destinies collide. Sarah stepped out of the sleek black car, heart pounding like a bass drum above the chatter of familiar voices. The summer breeze carried with it the sweet scent of blooming wildflowers, but all she could think about was how she had left this part of herself behind. 6 long years had passed since she last stood in her charming suburban hometown, but the memories felt fresh, raw, like a wound barely healed. She had traded in her apron from Waitress 101 for a tailored suit, climbing the corporate ladder to dizzying heights. But wealth had brought with it no relief from the echoes of her past, especially the memories of Jake, her first love. As she walked toward the large white tent where her younger sister South's wedding was taking place, echoes of laughter swirled around her. People waved, grinned, and pulled her in for quick hugs, but Sarah felt like a ghost drifting through the living. Her sister appeared radiant, her face glowing with joy, but Sarah's heart clenched at the thought of all she had left in pursuit of her American dream. Then, she saw him. Jake stood by the edge of the dance floor, a rugged silhouette that made her breath hitch. He was everything she remembered: strong, handsome, with deep-set eyes that once looked at her with unfiltered love. But now, those eyes hardened with resentment as they locked onto hers. The storm of emotions brewed as they exchanged stilted pleasantries, every word laced with unspoken history. "Nice to see you, Sarah," he said, his voice low, yet unmistakably heavy with unsaid things. "Nice to see you, too." She forced a smile, but it felt more like a mask. As the night wore on, the laughter twisted into an uneasy tension, their charged exchanges revealing cracks beneath the surface. The wedding celebration transformed into a whirlwind of nostalgia, where love seemed tangible and yet out of reach. Before they could register the shift, dark clouds rolled in, swallowing the stars. The joyous atmosphere shifted sharply to panic as the winds picked up, howling like a wounded animal. Rain poured down in torrents, and soon the town was engulfed in chaos. The tent flapped violently, and laughter turned to screams as people scurried for cover. Sarah's heart raced, her gaze searching for Jake, who gallantly helped others escape the fierce storm. When it was all over, their picturesque town had been battered by nature's fury, leaving devastation in its wake much like the wreckage of their relationship. Sarah stood amid the ruins, staring at the destruction. Jake's family farm was now a shadow of its former self, crushed under the weight of debt and tragedy. She faced a choice: pour her resources into rebuilding both the town and Jake's farm, or let go of him forever. As townspeople rallied together, Sarah felt the flicker of hope, igniting a passion deep within her for the community she once called home. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with the sun peeking through the remnants of the storm clouds. Sarah took a deep breath. A transforming moment lay ahead. Torn between ambition and love, she stepped forward, ready to bridge the gaping chasm between her past and present. Would her determination be enough to heal her relationship with Jake and give back to the community? The weight of uncertainty loomed, and as she took that first step forward, the air crackled with possibility and promise, leaving Sarah and the future hanging in the balance. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a soft glow on the debris scattered across the town square. Sarah felt a cool breeze brush against her skin, and the bittersweet scent of nostalgia filled the air. As people started to gather their things and assess the damage, her determination started to solidify. There was so much to be done, and so little time to lose. "Sarah!" A voice called, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Claire, her younger sister, frantically searching for her amidst the chaos. "Are you okay? I was worried you got hurt in the storm." "I'm fine," Sarah reassured her, offering a reassuring smile despite the swirling turmoil inside. "What about you?" "I'm just shaken," Claire admitted, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's our wedding day, and everything's ruined. I can't believe this is happening." Sarah pulled her sister into a tight embrace, feeling the warmth of family amidst the wreckage. This isn't how we imagine today, but we are going to rise from the ashes, just like the town will. Together. As Claire clung to her, the sight of Jake trudging toward them stopped Sarah's heart for a beat. He looked weathered, his clothes damp, and his hair tousled by the wind. But his presence was profoundly calming. "I've been looking for you," Jake said, running a hand through his hair, which shimmered like the fading light. "The barn needs immediate help. Let us get everyone organized. We can't let this storm break us." Sarah felt an unbreakable pull toward him. Their shared responsibility in that moment overshadowed the past. "You're right. Let us do it." With an invigorated spirit, Sarah rallied the townspeople, creating makeshift teams to assess damages and prioritize repairs. It was a whirlwind of movement, filled with shouts of encouragement and practical suggestions. As they worked side by side, she felt the earlier tension between Jake and her melt away, replaced by a united front and shared purpose. While hauling overturned tables back to the tent, Jake flashed a genuine smile. "You've really turned things around, Sarah. You have a gift for this, for bringing everyone together." "Maybe I just found the right motivation," she replied, their fingers brushing against each other as they shifted a heavy piece together. Sparks ignited in her heart, and she caught Jake looking at her with a warmth that reminded her of simpler times. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, illuminating the wreckage with a golden glow, the unmistakable sound of laughter broke through the air. An elderly couple was slow dancing beneath what remained of the wedding tent, swaying to a tune playing softly from a phone someone had dug out. "Look at them," Jake said, nodding toward the couple. "Even in the worst of times, love persists." Sarah turned to him, her heart racing. The words echoed through her mind, tugging at something deep within. "You know, we could bring something good from all this." Jake's brows knit together with a mix of curiosity and hope. "What do you mean?" "We could turn this around for the whole town. Rebuild. Use the wedding as a community event. Or maybe a fundraiser. We get everyone invested again. Not just in the town, but in each other. Together." Jake looked at her for a long moment, realization dawning in his eyes. "You really think so?" "I know so," Sarah affirmed, determination coursing through her veins like wildfire. "But it means we'll have to work side by side." "Side by side," Jake echoed, a hint of a smile tugging on his lips. "I'd like that." As dusk cast an enchanting hue over the scene, uncertainty still lingered, but with it came an undeniable thrill. Would they be able to rekindle not just the town, but their own bond? With hearts racing and hands steady, they mounted the hill that overlooked the battered town. Hope hung like a new dawn on the horizon, a new chapter aching to be written. But as they stood together, a truck rolled into town, its tires crunching on debris. A newcomer with unknowable intentions. What did this stranger bring to their fragile recovery? The air grew heavy with anticipation as the truck rolled to a stop. Dust swirled around its tires, settling on the wreckage nearby, while a figure stepped out. Dressed in crisp clothes that contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding them, a stranger surveyed the scene with an unsettling calmness. Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach as her eyes met his. "Who is that?" Claire whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, fear creeping into her tone. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart pounding. "But we should find out." Jake shot her a glance, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Maybe it's just someone passing through. Let's focus on what we can control." Despite their resolve, the stranger ambled over with an air of authority, hands tucked into pockets. He presented a stark contrast to the weary townspeople, and as he approached, Sarah could feel everyone's eyes shifting toward the newcomer. "Good evening," he greeted, his voice smooth like polished stone. "I'm Adam, and I've come to offer some help." A murmur of skepticism rippled through the crowd. Sarah took a step forward, wanting to gauge his sincerity. "Help? From who? And why should we trust you?" Adam met her gaze without flinching. "I've heard about what happened here. I want to contribute. I have resources that can make a difference." Jake crossed his arms, brow furrowing. "What kind of resources?" We don't need handouts. We're working to rebuild. With a slight smile, Adam replied, I understand. I'm not looking to just throw money at you. I want a partner to fund the community event you're planning. We could use it as a way to bring people back together. Sarah's brain raced at the implications. An event could bring back the town's spirit, but at what cost? What's your angle, Adam? She pressed. Why should we let someone we don't know into something so personal? Because, Sarah, he said, voice dipping into sincerity. We all need to come together. I lost everything at one point too, in a way I can't even explain. Helping you all is a chance for me to give back to do something meaningful. His words took root in her mind. Could he really mean it? Jake shifted uncomfortably beside her. We need to discuss this as a town before making a decision. Adam nodded. Absolutely. I'll be around to answer any questions, and here's my card. He handed it to Sarah. Consider it an introduction. As he turned to walk back to his truck, Sarah felt a mix of intrigue and caution. A stranger was only seconds away from becoming a pivotal part of their recovery, and her instincts told her to tread carefully. Taking a deep breath, she turned to Jake. We might need to hear him out. But we have to keep our priorities straight. Jake agreed, albeit reluctantly, and together they returned to the growing crowd. Claire grabbed Sarah's arm, whispering. What if he's just trying to win our trust to take advantage of us? With resolve warming her heart, Sarah replied, then we watch closely and make sure we're the ones in control. We decide how this plays out, not him. Before long, the townspeople began to murmur among themselves, some eager, others skeptical. The vibrant tapestry of emotions illustrated a community still grappling with heartbreak, yet searching for a way forward. As they deliberated, Sarah's mind buzzed with possibilities. What if this was the turning point they needed? Yet caution warned her of what lay ahead. What if Adam had hidden motives that could pull them apart instead of bringing them together? In the midst of the discussions, she suddenly spotted movement in the distance. A familiar face approached, one she thought she might never see again. It was her old friend, Mark. But that reunion would come with its own set of complications both for her and the town. What had he come back for, and would his return bring solace or further heartbreak? The uncertainty hung thick in the air. Mark's familiar silhouette grew sharper as he stepped into the fading light, the sunlight reflecting off his tousled dark hair. The years had changed him, but his presence still sparked a flicker of memories in Sarah's shared laughter, late-night talks, dreams painted under star-studded skies. It was hard to believe that 6 years had passed since he left without a word, to chase ambitions that ultimately took him far from their small town. Mark. Sarah's voice broke free, a mix of surprise and emotion rising like the wind. The crowd quieted, all eyes shifting towards the reunion as the atmosphere thickened with curiosity. Sarah. He took a step closer, eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her heart race. She remembered those eyes, how they always seemed to see her through her laughter and sadness. Yet, his return brought an unsettling question, why now? Is that really you? Claire's voice cut through the charged air, her skepticism palpable as she stepped slightly in front of Sarah, protective instincts kicking in. Yeah, it's me, Mark replied, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. I heard what happened. I wanted to be here for you all. Sarah's heart sank. It felt too convenient. You couldn't just check in when everything was falling apart for us? Where have you been? The sharpness in her words surprised even her. I know I should be reached out. I was caught up in my life, but I'm back now. I want to help. The sincerity in his tone struck her, but doubt clawed at her mind. While the crowd began to whisper again, Sarah felt a pit of conflicting emotions swirl in her stomach. The town had suffered so much, and here was someone from her past, a heart she thought was lost, standing right in front of her. But could she trust him after all that had happened? Help? Like Adam? Jake interjected, still eyeing Mark with caution. Are you here to sponsor our community event too? Mark glanced sharply at Jake. I didn't come for that. I came for Sarah. For all of you. A murmur of discontent rippled through the crowd. The townsfolk were protective of their own, and they had their share of skeptics, especially about the return of someone they viewed as a ghost of the past. Being back doesn't change the fact that you left, Claire challenged, her voice firm. You don't get it. Mark stepped forward, the urgency in his voice rising. I've seen what life is like out there. I didn't think I'd come back until I learned about everything you all have endured. I want to support you, but I just need you to let me in. Adam watched from a distance as the tension between Mark and the townsfolk escalated. He leaned against his truck, the corners of his mouth flickering with an unreadable expression. Let us take a moment, Sarah said, stepping between Mark and Claire, her voice steady. We need to figure this out together. As Mark's gaze locked back onto hers, his familiar warmth started to chip away at her doubts. But just when she felt her heart begin to open, a shadow of uncertainty loomed. Don't you see? This is exactly what we're worried about. Claire exclaimed. We can't have more chaos. We need stability to rebuild, not ghosts from the past. The air vibrated with the collective emotions of the crowd: fear, anger, hope. Sarah struggled to find her voice in the rising tides of conflict, a crucial moment hanging over them all. I believe in second chances, but we need to tread carefully, she finally said, her heart echoing the same desire for healing they all shared. Mark, we'll listen. But you need to show us you mean it. As silence fell momentarily, tension crackled like electricity. Sarah felt the weight of her decision surge, bringing the community's hope and fear together in a single moment. Above the buzz of apprehension, Adam took a few steps closer, his presence interrupting the heavy air between them. Whatever happens next is going to require all of us to work together. Can we agree on that? And just as a fragile unity began to form amidst the chaos, Sarah's eyes met Mark's one last time. As they stood on the precipice of rekindled trust, she felt something pull in her chest, an unfurling of possibilities, both thrilling and daunting. But what if the ties of betrayal ran deeper than she imagined? Before she could voice this concern, a sudden commotion erupted from the far side of the crowd, drawing everyone's attention. What now? What threat or revelation would test the fragile bonds they had just begun to stitch back together? The crowd surged like a wave, drawn to the source of the commotion. Whispers of confusion swept through the air, many faces turning in anticipation, eyes wide with curiosity. Sarah felt her heart race for different reasons now. Whatever had just interrupted their fragile moment felt like the edge of a cliff, ready to plunge them into chaos. Stay here, she whispered to Mark, though her voice quaked with uncertainty. She pushed her way through the gathered townsfolk. Each step pulled her closer to the unknown. As Sarah reached the front, she was greeted by an unexpected sight. A woman with fiery red hair stood at the center, shaking her fist angrily at a group of local teenagers who had apparently pushed their way through the crowd, carrying signs and shouting slogans. The signs read, "Save our town, enough chaos." Their youthful excitement had quickly devolved into a disagreement, riling the already tense atmosphere. Listen. You can't just storm in and demand anything. The woman, who Sarah recognized as Linda, the town's librarian, shouted at the group. This is our home, you need to respect that. Off to the side, Sarah caught a glimpse of Mark, his expression shifting from earnest to perplexed as he studied the unfolding chaos. She felt a pang of fear. They were teetering on the edge of a foundation that could collapse at any moment with the slightest nudge. The loudest teenager, a tall boy with an air of bravado, retorted, "People like him don't care about us. This is our chance to set things straight." He gestured toward Mark, and the room shifted, turning their attention to him again. "Mark, say something." Jake shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. "Prove you're here to help, not just to fill your pockets with our pain." Nothing prepared Sarah for the weight of those words falling onto Mark's shoulders. The crowd's eyes bore down on him, and for a heartbeat, she could see the conflict mirrored in his own gaze. "I'm just a guy who wants to help, I promise," Mark finally said, though his voice faltered. "But you're right, words aren't enough." He looked around at the faces surrounding him, each laden with hurt and suspicion. If he faltered now, she feared, it could drive a wedge deeper into the community. Before he could continue, the woman with red hair stepped closer, pressing her palm against her chest as if seeking calm. Mark, look, whatever you've done in the past, if you're truly here to support us, we need concrete plans. Not speeches. No more promises. Mark nodded, a visible shiver coursing through him. I understand. Maybe I can assist in restoring community programs, get involved with the youth, or help with financial support for rebuilding. Sarah felt a rush of hope, but it danced painfully alongside her doubts. Could he really be sincere this time, or was this merely a rehearsed line of assurance? As the tension between the townsfolk and Mark simmered, realization hit her. What if this moment was more than just about Mark's return? It was about their town. The healing it needed became clearer among the turmoil. They all needed to find a way forward, together. Everyone, Sarah raised her voice, hoping to pull the room back from the brink. Mark's here now, but we need to figure out what that means. Let us not let fear divide us again. We need each other more than ever. But just as she spoke, a familiar sound echoed through the growing shadows. A siren, loud and piercing, filled the air, a stark reminder of the ongoing struggle in their town, the danger that loomed just out of sight. What is that? Someone cried out, panic creeping back in. Sarah turned her gaze toward the sound, her heart quickening. Whatever legacy the past had cast over them, it felt threatened again, and she knew one truth now more than ever: they had to face it together or be forever haunted by their choices. Stay close. She shouted over the rumble of the siren, determination flooding her voice. We're stronger united. As the community began to rally around, tension mixed with renewed resolve, a sense of purpose began to unfurl. But beneath the surface, Sarah felt a chill of uncertainty. What awaited them beyond this moment? And what role would Mark truly play in the story that was still unwritten? The siren grew louder, a throbbing reminder that the echoes of the past were never too far away. What awaited them next? Would they find strength, or would ghosts from yesterday's choices bring chaos once again? The siren's shrill wail pierced through the hopeful chatter, shaking the very ground beneath them. Sarah's heart raced as the crowd shifted uneasily. People exchanged glances, worry sweeping over their faces as they struggled to comprehend the meaning behind the sound. What's happening? A woman in the front row stammered, clutching the arm of her husband. It can't be the police again, Jake mumbled, his voice tight with fear. Not after everything we've been through. Sarah scanned the crowd, her gaze darting among the anxious faces, searching for assurance. She found Mark, standing tall yet visibly shaken, his features hardened in determination. He stepped forward, taking a deep breath. Despite the cacophony of panic around them, he cleared his throat and raised his voice. Everyone. We need to stay calm. If we stick together, we can together. Linda shouted, cutting him off. You think together will protect us? People are getting hurt out there. The words hung heavy in the air. A murmur swelled. Distrust and fear seeped back into the crowd like an unwelcome fog, threatening to engulf the fragile optimism that momentarily flourished. I'm not asking you not to be afraid. Mark continued, lifting his arms in sincerity. I just ask that you trust we can figure this out. But we can't do it if we allow fear to divide us again. It's easy to say that from where you stand. The tall teenager fired back, bitter resentment etched on his face. What do you know about our struggles? About losing friends and family? Mark flinched at the accusation but didn't shy away. I know more than you think, he said, his voice steady. I've lost people, too. I may not have been there for you, but I'm here now. And I want to try. This time, the silence that followed felt heavy with contemplation. A few people exchanged uncertain looks, grasping for understanding in the chaos. Sarah leaned in closer to Mark, panic threatening to drown out her sense of hope. You need to connect with them, show you care. But just as Mark was about to answer, the siren's call reached a fever pitch. It surged with relentless urgency, and a cloud of thick smoke began to rise beyond the crowd, dark and swallowing. Look! A young girl cried, pointing in horror. What is happening? Is there a fire? The crowd began to stir restlessly, a swell of fright rippling through them. Mark's eyes widened as he turned to Sarah. We should help. If there's danger, we can't stand around. No! She exclaimed, grasping his arm. We can't leave people alone here. We need to focus on what we can control. They need us to lead them. Led? Mark shot back, his voice laced with urgency. What if before he could finish, a loud explosion cut through the air, sending a tremor through the ground beneath them? Gasps filled the space, eyes wide as disbelief painted the faces around them. Everyone, back away! Linda shouted, her educator's instinct kicking in. We need to evacuate to safety. Follow me. People hesitated, glancing between the encroaching darkness and the flickering ember of hope that marked the presence of Sarah and Mark. The air buzzed with fear, but it also crackled with resilience. Trust us, Sarah urged, stepping forward. We can get through this together. We just have to believe. But deep in her heart, uncertainty gnawed at her. With danger so close, would they find the strength to unite? Could Mark truly be the partner the town needed? As the smoke thickened and the atmosphere grew tenser, Sarah's resolve solidified. The moment demanded their courage. They could claw toward light or be suffocated in fear, but what awaited them in the flames? Would they rise together or fall apart at the brink of crisis? The panicked crowd surged backwards, a tidal wave of fear threatening to swallow them whole. Mark moved to the front, his instincts pushing him to protect, to reassure the people he had just been trying to unite. The flames flickered in the distance, casting an eerie glow over their faces. The air, thick with smoke and desperation, clawed at their throats. Everyone, please! Mark shouted, trying to command attention over the chaos. We have to stay focused. We can't panic. Let us move to the old workshop at the end of the street. It's brick, and it will be safer. His voice broke through some of the noise, and a few people began to follow his lead. But not everyone was convinced. Linda stood rooted, her eyes locked onto the growing fire. What if it spreads? What if there's no time? She yelled, fear splashing her words with urgency. Sarah watched Mark as he crafted his words carefully, weaving them into a lifeline for those around him. His face glistened with sweat and grit, but there was fire in his eyes. He could channel their fear into action. Listen. If we stay here, we'll only be trapped. Now, each of you, take a moment. Grab anyone next to you, and let us move quickly. Together. His voice rose above the chaos, rallying some to push forward, even as others lingered in confusion. Fear still gripped many hearts, but the hope of unity ignited a flicker of movement in the crowd. Sarah, come on. Mark reached for her. We can't let them falter. We have to help. She hesitated, her heart a churning storm of worry. They were risking their lives in this uncertain sea of chaos, but they couldn't abandon those experiencing fear and pain. I'll go with you, she finally breathed, clutching his hand tightly. The two began leading the way, their grip on each other a tether in the gathering storm. They passed a man cradling a child, who trembled in fear. Over here. Mark called, signaling for them to follow. A few others rallied behind, clutching onto one another, but Sarah could sense the hesitation in their steps. The fire danced closer, sparks flying through the air like angry fireflies. She looked back and saw Linda finally sprinting, bolstered by the crowd's movement. As they neared the workshop, the world around them felt both surreal and real. The sirens still blared. The smoke began to thicken, they could taste it on their tongues. Mark turned to her, his voice barely above a whisper. We can do this, Sarah. We'll find a way, I promise. But doubt still nagged at her. Could they really protect everyone? Was this place truly safe? She squeezed his hand tighter. We have to believe in each other, she replied, a poignant determination rising alongside her fear. If we don't, who will? They reached the workshop, a sturdy structure that stood like a lighthouse in a storm. Mark shouted for everyone to enter quickly and safely. But in the chaos, Sarah noticed a shadow lagging behind a woman on the ground, unable to stand, caught in the confusion. "Help her!" Sarah yelled, realizing with icy dread that every second mattered. "We can't leave anyone behind." Mark nodded, pushing forward with renewed urgency. They rushed back, side by side, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The smoke curled around them like a vengeful serpent, but they were not turning back. As they reached the woman, she looked up, fear-stricken but grateful. Sarah knelt beside her, urging her to find strength. "We're going to get you out of here. Just hold on." With Mark lifting her under her arms, they instinctively formed a barrier, bodies at the forefront, hearts beating in unison against a backdrop of chaos. But just as they began to pull her toward the door, a roar erupted nearby, shaking the ground. What was that? The crowd gasped in horror, eyes widening as heavy debris rained down from above. The moment of truth loomed. Would they escape to safety or be trapped by the very situation they were trying to escape? Anxiety tightened Sarah's chest as she faced the flames, the fear of loss clawing at her heart. They were running out of time. Would they gather their courage and help each other through? Or would they lose everything in a split second of hesitation? The tremor shook the ground beneath their feet, a reminder of the danger that loomed all around them. Mark's grip was fierce, but Sarah felt the woman's weight dragging them down, her eyelids fluttering in distress. They had to act, and quickly. There was no time for fear. "Keep moving," Mark urged, his voice ringing with urgency. He guided Sarah to lift the woman's legs, their combined strength more vital than ever. The crowd around them was taken by a mixture of trepidation and determination, glancing nervously at the ominous smoke and chaos. More debris crashed to the ground, and a few people screamed. The air was filled with the acrid smell of smoke, and Sarah felt her lungs burning. They had only a moment to move, yet it felt like the world was collapsing in slow motion. "Simon, we can't stop," Mark shouted, pulling the woman closer, his eyes wide with a fierce focus. As they stumbled back toward the workshop, Sarah felt the heat intensify, licking at her skin. She cast a quick look over her shoulder, the chaos behind them a frantic swirl of movement. What were they running towards? Safety or another trap? Linda was now by their side, her face marked with soot but her determination palpable. "Just a bit further," she urged, increasing her pace, and it sent a spark of hope through Sarah. A crack sounded above, drawing their attention. The roof of a nearby building, heavy with smoke and flames, threatened to collapse. The sight pierced Sarah's heart. If they failed now. "Watch out!" someone shouted, pointing at the falling debris. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She pushed forward, driven by an adrenaline-fueled urgency. In that moment, Mark shifted the woman to his other arm, barely managing to keep her aloft. "You're doing great. Just a little more," he encouraged, even as panic danced behind his eyes. Another piece of debris fell, narrowly missing them. They charged ahead, urgency interlaced with desperation. Finally, they reached the workshop doors. Mark kicked them open, and the interior was dim but solid. He glanced back, scanning for any stragglers in the chaos behind them. "We need to move everyone in," he called. The urgency in his voice echoed off the walls, rallying the last few who dared to approach. As they stepped inside, relief washed over Sarah for just a second. They had made it. But the sound of cracking wood and shattering glass echoed in the distance, pulling them back to reality. Everyone seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, but Mark's face remained grim, eyes scanning the crowd. "Is everyone okay?" he asked, tone softening. But just as people began to check on one another, a loud crash rattled the structure. Sarah felt a chill. The roof was collapsing. "Get to the back," she yelled instinctively. Panic rippled through the crowd again, old fears reigniting with the rising tension. She felt the weight of responsibility, the pressing need to lead them again. Mark caught her gaze, determination flashing between them. "We need to figure out another way. We can't just wait here." But the fear of being trapped gripped her. They were running out of time, and smoke seeped in from the edges of the room. Would they find an escape, or was this workshop just a temporary refuge? The urgency mounted, as clarity fractured into chaos, and they realized they might need to dig deep within themselves for a way out. Is there a back exit? She shouted, heart pounding. Mark's brows furrowed. I think so, but we have to move fast. As they gathered their strength, the roaring fire and creaking wood stood as testaments to their imminent danger. Sarah squeezed Mark's hand even tighter, heart in her throat. They had to act before the flames consumed everything. What if we don't make it out? The thought echoed in her mind, but she pushed it aside. They had to believe in each other, in the power of hope. Would they escape or be consumed by the very flames they fought against? Time was running out, and only their unity could guide them through the darkness. The tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating. Sarah felt the heat creeping closer, every crack of the wood overhead sending shivers down her spine. Panic settled in the pit of her stomach, a gnawing dread that they might not escape. Okay, everyone. She shouted, trying to rally the group. Let us find that back exit. Stay together. Mark and Linda nodded, their expressions fierce with determination. Together, they moved deeper into the workshop, scanning their surroundings for an escape route. The dim light clung to the walls, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance and tease them, mocking their desperate situation. This way. Linda pointed toward a door at the far end. I think I remember seeing a back door when we came in. They rushed towards it, dodging items strewn across the floor. Sarah's heart raced as the building groaned around them, each creak of wood felt like a countdown. She wished the panic gnawing at her would ebb, but every time she thought they were safe, another crash echoed from above. Help me push. Mark grunted as he reached the doors and shoved, but they wouldn't budge. Try again. Sarah urged, stepping beside him. Their shoulders crashed together against the heavy wood. They pushed with everything they had, desperation coursing through them. It felt like the whole world was watching, holding its breath as if it knew their lives hung in the balance. After what felt like an eternity, the door inched open, revealing a narrow passageway leading outside. A surge of hope washed over Sarah, and she barely held back a cry of joy. But it was short-lived. The heat from the flames behind them intensified, licking greedily at their heels. Go. Go. She cried, urging the group forward. Mark ushered the woman they rescued through, and Linda followed. As they bolted through the passage, Sarah felt the urgency behind her tighten into a choking grip. She turned back for one last quick look, heart hammering in her chest. Come on. Mark yelled from the other side, fear etched across his face. In that moment, she was torn between the warmth of hope and the chill of terror. As she rushed through the doorway, Sarah glanced back again, and her heart sank. A beam had fallen, blocking their only escape. She knew there was no room for hesitation, they had to move now. But the weight of the situation pressed down on her. Go. Don't look back. She shouted as she pushed her way through the door. Outside, they stumbled into the light, gasping for fresh air, but the chaos continued all around them. People ran in every direction, their faces painted with fear and survival instincts. Over here. Linda called urgently, pointing towards a nearby alley as flames billowed from the workshop behind them, creating a fiery curtain against the backdrop of the sky. Mark grabbed Sarah's hand, anchoring her to the present. Stay with me, he said firmly, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. The urgency pressed on them as they raced down the alley. Sarah could feel the adrenaline pulsating through her veins, a wild mix of fear and relief. They had made it this far, but what lay ahead? Once they reached the end of the alley, they paused, trying to catch their breath and assess the situation. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, approaching like a harbinger of help and safety. Is everyone okay? Mark asked, concern flooding his voice as he glanced around. I think so, Sarah said, her breath coming in heavy gasps. But then she noticed something out of the corner of her eye, a flash of movement in the shadows. Wait. She said, her heart racing again, this time with a different kind of fear. What if they weren't out of danger yet? As the sirens drew closer, they stood tense, recognizing that the worst might not yet be over. What or who could be lurking just beyond the safety of the alley? The sirens screamed louder, thrumming in Sarah's ears like a warning. They stood at the mouth of the alley, breaths mingling with despair but edged with determination. Mark's grip tightened around Sarah's hand, grounding her as the chaos raged behind them. "Sarah, we can't just stand here," he urged, eyes scanning the shadows. "We gotta keep moving, we need to see where everyone else is." She nodded, but the fear coiling in her stomach felt almost suffocating. What if someone else needs help? "We can't leave yet." Mark's expression softened slightly, the weight of their shared history shimmering between them. "I know. But right now, we've got to prioritize safety." His voice was steady, and Sarah fought against the swell of uncertainty rising within her. Just then, a familiar voice broke through the chaos. "Sarah." "Mark." It was Claire, running toward them, eyes wide with panic. Relief washed over Sarah, and she rushed forward. "Are you okay? Where's Jake?" "They're organizing a rescue effort for anyone else left behind," Claire exclaimed, breathless. "We need to get to the community center, it's safe there." "What about everyone else?" Mark pressed, looking between the two women. "They'll be okay, I promise. The firefighters have arrived." "We have to trust that they know what to do," Claire insisted, her voice rising above the din.as if on cue. The fire truck roared past, spewing water like a leviathan aiming to quench the inferno. Sarah's heart raced, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. Maybe this was their turning point, an opportunity to rebuild, to reflect, to stand together. The three of them sprinted toward the community center, dodging fallen debris and shouting voices. "Stay focused," Claire called, rallying them through the fleeting chaos. "And look out for others." When they reached the center, a sense of containment enveloped them, shielding them from the whirlwind outside. Inside, people were gathering, helping one another, their spirits fueled by the unity born from fear. Sarah felt that same hope twinkling again. "Sarah." Jake rushed toward them, relief flooding his expression as he checked them for injuries. Seeing Jake sent a rush of memories crashing down on Sarah. Every laugh, every moment spent in blissful ignorance of the storms life could churn up. They had built a framework of hope amongst the wreckage, and while it was fragile, it was far from broken. "Is everyone okay?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding. "We're getting everyone accounted for. You know, it's been rough, but we're all in this together," Jake replied, determination shining through. "Did you see Mark?" Claire interjected, glancing around. "Yeah, I told him to stay with a group down at the south side of town. He's got the right instincts for rallying people." Jake's confidence rippled through Sarah, a lifeline in the uncertainty. Mark stood near the doorway, observing the scene, his expression a mixture of awe and determination. Yet, the shadow of unresolved feelings loomed over him, threading through the warmth of the moment. "Sarah," he called, drawing the three of them closer. "What's our next move? We can't let this break us. There has to be a plan." "Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it," Sarah replied, her voice calm, giving into her fears just enough to channel them into resolve. "But we can build something stronger from what we've lost. We might be here for each other after everything has changed. We just need to open our hearts." With each heartbeat, energy shifted in the room. People began to throw out ideas for community outreach and fundraisers, voices intermingling with laughter and shared memories. In the ashes of destruction, new understandings bloomed. Sarah felt renewed purpose fill her as she moved through the crowd, gathering ideas as they floated within the vibrant tapestry being woven around her. "Yes. Let us host a community event to celebrate everyone's bravery and raise funds, not just to rebuild our town, but to invest in each other," she called, the fire of hope igniting again. "Let's South reclaim this place we love together." Applause broke out, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Adrenaline surged. She rallied people, mapping plans, approaching old faces and new with an infectious spark. Amidst the chaos transforming into clarity, the warmth of connection blossomed even deeper. They laughed real laughter, finding pockets of joy beneath the tumult. As Mark stood beside her, Sarah felt a flicker of what could be. "You know," he said softly, "maybe sometimes what we need isn't to forget our pasts. Maybe we just have to learn to carry them forward." Her heart glowed. "Together?" she asked, her eyes locked with his, searching for an understanding deeper than before. "Together," Mark affirmed, a smile creeping across his face. With every moment that slipped by, hope became more than a whisper, it became a rallying cry for the community. Sarah knew that they would rise from the ashes, united, the sound of laughter mixed with the underlying thrum of determination, swelling through the community center. The warmth of connection flowed like electricity, lifting hearts and igniting dreams. They would rebuild not just the town, but the bonds among them. And as they stood tall in solidarity, glimmers of the future danced in the corners of their eyes, promising new love, opportunities, and growth. With a renewed spirit, they faced the horizon together. In that moment, Sarah realized they weren't just surviving, they were learning to thrive. And so, the journey of healing began anew, with doors wide open to fresh starts and renewed love. If you're feeling the transformation and love in this story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help share this emotional journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. They won't regret it. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. Let's keep this amazing community thriving.